The alien fleets arrived without warning. There was no slow approach, no long message, and no time to prepare. One moment the sky was normal, and the next it was full of dark shapes that blocked the sun. They hung over the cities like shadows that did not move with the clouds. Then the message came, sent to every screen, every signal, every radio on Earth. Earth must die. There was no demand. No request. No reason given. Just a statement, cold and final. At first, panic spread faster than fire. People ran into the streets. Cars crashed as drivers looked up instead of forward. Planes turned back midair. Some people screamed. Some prayed. Some froze where they stood, unable to move at all. Then the first strikes hit. Bright lines fell from the sky and tore into the edges of cities. Buildings shook. Windows shattered. Smoke rose in thick columns. Power went out in wide areas, and the night came early even though it was still day. Daniel Reed stood on the roof of a hospital when the sky burned. He had gone up to check a broken antenna, annoyed and tired, thinking only about work. When the first alien ship moved, slow and silent, his hands stopped shaking not because he was brave, but because his mind went empty. He did not run. Around him, alarms screamed. People rushed down the stairs. Someone yelled his name from below. Daniel looked at the burning horizon and felt fear press into his chest, heavy and sharp. But beneath it there was something else. A thought, simple and clear. If everyone runs, who stays? He went back inside and started helping move patients away from the windows. He carried beds with other staff. He told people to stay low. His voice shook at first, but it did not stop. Across the city, Emma Clark stood in the middle of her apartment building's hallway. The lights were out, and the only glow came from phones and emergency lamps. Children cried. An old man sat on the floor holding his chest. Someone was shouting that the world was ending. Emma raised her voice. "Stop," she said. Not loud but firm. People looked at her, surprised that anyone sounded calm. "We need water, blankets, and food," she said. "If you have it, bring it here. If you don't, stay close. No one stays alone." She did not know why she spoke. She was not a leader. She worked at a small library. She liked quiet and order. But fear was loud and someone had to answer it. People began to move. Slowly at first. A woman brought bottled water. A man brought a flashlight. Someone else opened a door and offered a warm room for children. The hallway filled with quiet motion, not panic. Above the city, the alien ships did not rush. They watched. Their machines were perfect. Their movements followed exact lines. Their weapons struck fixed points. They believed that fear would spread, that humans would break apart, that surrender would come before the planet was fully destroyed. They did not understand how humans reacted to being told there was no choice. News spread in broken pieces. Governments tried to speak, but signals failed. Satellites went dark. Old radios became valuable again. People shared information by word, by paper, by memory. Daniel worked for 16 hours without rest. When the hospital lost power completely, he helped move patients to the lower floors. He wrapped wounds with torn sheets. He made jokes that were not very funny, but they made people breathe easier. At one point, the building shook so hard that dust fell from the ceiling. A nurse cried and said they should leave. Daniel looked at the patients who could not walk, who could not run, who had nowhere else to go. "We stay," he said. Not as an order. As a fact. Emma spent the night awake, sitting against the wall with a list in her hands. She wrote names. Who needed medicine. Who had children. Who was alone. When someone panicked, she listened. When someone shouted, she did not shout back. Outside, fires burned. Inside, people shared bread and water in silence. The next day, the aliens sent the message again. Earth must die. But this time, the message was not the loudest sound. People were already moving. Small groups formed without orders. Neighbors checked on neighbors. Mechanics fixed generators from scrap. Teachers watched children while parents helped others. Soldiers and civilians worked side by side not because they were told to, but because it made sense. The aliens struck again, harder this time. More cities were damaged. More lives were lost. But something unexpected happened. The fear did not grow the way it should have. Every attack created more damage but also more connection. Every loss made people tighter, not looser. The world did not go silent. It grew louder with human voices. Daniel finally stepped outside the hospital at sunset. The sky was red with smoke, but the alien ships were still there watching. He felt small. He felt tired. But he did not feel finished. Emma stood on the roof of her building that same evening. She looked at the sky and held a child's hand. The child asked if the aliens would come back. "They're already here," Emma said softly. So we stay. Far above Earth, alien commanders studied their screens. Their models showed resistance should be ending. Resources should be collapsing. Order should be failing. Instead, the data showed something else. Humans were not surrendering. They were choosing. And for the first time, the invaders began to wonder if they had misunderstood the species they had come to erase. The attacks did not stay in one place. They spread like a dark wave across the planet. One city burned, then another. When people learned how to hide, the aliens changed targets. When defenses formed, the strikes moved again. No continent was spared. No ocean felt safe. Human forces were weaker. That truth could not be hidden. Alien weapons were stronger, faster, and more precise. Their ships could stay in the sky for days without moving. Their strikes came from distances humans could barely reach. But humans changed faster. Jack Miller learned this on the third night after the invasion reached his region. He stood with a small group under a broken bridge, watching smoke drift across the road. The plan they had made that morning was already useless. "We don't go that way," Jack said. Someone asked why. "Because they expect it," he replied. Jack did not lead a large unit. He never wanted to. Large groups were easy to see, easy to track, easy to break. Instead, he worked with small teams. 5 people. Sometimes 6. Never more. Every day the teams changed routes. Every night they slept in different places. If one path worked once, it was never used again. Jack carried no heavy weapons. He carried maps made by hand, drawn and redrawn every night. He listened more than he spoke. When someone suggested a better idea, Jack took it without pride. Speed mattered more than strength. Across the city ruins, Lucy Grant sat on the floor of an old office building, surrounded by wires, batteries, and broken devices. The building had no power, no glass in the windows, and no working elevators. It was perfect. Lucy connected a radio to a car battery using stripped wires. She adjusted the dials slowly, listening to static turn into voices. Most signals were weak. Some were lost mid-sentence. But weak was better than nothing. She smiled when she heard a voice from 2 streets away. "That's good," she said to no one. "That's very good." Lucy did not have access to advanced tools. She did not need them. She used simple parts, old tech, and patience. She fixed what others had given up on. Radios. Old phones. Emergency systems that still worked if treated gently. Every night, Lucy sent out short messages. Safe route open. Strike expected east. Shelter moved. She never sent the same message twice. The aliens watched human communication fail in the first days and assumed it would stay broken. Their models showed chaos growing as networks collapsed. They did not account for humans building new ones from scraps. Jack's teams moved through neighborhoods just before attacks hit. Sometimes they arrived minutes too late. Sometimes they arrived just in time. When they succeeded, people never knew how close danger had been. One evening, a child asked Jack if the aliens were winning. Jack thought for a moment. "They're strong," he said. "But they're slow." That night the plan changed again. Lucy lost her building during an early morning strike. She barely escaped before the roof collapsed. Dust filled her lungs. Her hands shook as she crawled out into the street. She did not cry. She gathered what she could carry and walked until she found another place. By sunset she was transmitting again. The signal was weaker, but it reached farther. Adaptation did not look heroic. It looked messy. People argued. Plans failed. Some choices were wrong. But every mistake was shared. Every lesson spread fast. If one team learned something, everyone learned it by morning. Jack changed team leaders every few days. Not because they failed, but because it kept thinking fresh. No one grew too attached to control. No one waited for permission. Lucy taught others how to fix basic systems. She did not keep knowledge to herself. When someone learned, they taught someone else. Soon, messages came from places she had never visited. Alien strikes increased in number. Their timing became tighter. Their patterns more complex. Still, they missed things. They hit empty buildings. They cut power to areas already abandoned. They blocked roads humans no longer used. The aliens adjusted again. And again. But humans adjusted faster. One night, Jack's team split in 2 without planning it ahead of time. A sudden patrol forced the choice. Half went left. Half went right. Both survived. The next day Jack changed the rule. If the plan breaks, he said, don't fix it. Replace it. Lucy listened to alien transmissions sometimes. She could not understand the language, but she could hear tone. There was no anger. No panic. Only confusion. Signals overlapped. Commands repeated. Corrections stacked on top of each other. The system was trying too hard to be perfect. Humans were not perfect. They were flexible. Loss continued. Jack lost a teammate when a building fell faster than expected. Lucy lost contact with 3 shelters in one night. The silence hurt more than noise. Still, the work continued. People stopped asking when the war would end. They asked where they were needed. By the second week, something strange appeared in alien data. Human movement did not follow logic. Attacks did not reduce resistance. Disruption did not slow response. Every night the plan changed. Every morning humans were still there. Jack stood on a rooftop before dawn, looking at the damaged city below. Fires burned in places he could not reach. But in others, lights flickered back on. Lucy sat nearby, listening to voices cross the dark air. "Signals holding," she said. Jack nodded. "Good. Then we move again." Above them, alien ships drifted in silence. Their systems searched for patterns that refused to stay still. For the first time, the invaders faced an enemy they could not lock into place. Not because humans were stronger, but because they would not stay the same. Loss came slowly at first, then all at once. Names were spoken softly, then written down, then left unsaid because there were too many. Streets that once held markets and laughter now held quiet smoke and broken stone. The alien attacks did not stop, and they did not slow. Every day something was taken away. Yet every day something else grew. Mark Lewis stood in an empty parking structure that had become a training ground. The roof above was cracked, but it still held. Sunlight came through in thin lines. Around him stood men and women of all ages. Some wore old uniforms. Most wore normal clothes. None of them waited for a command that would never come. Mark did not shout. He did not give speeches. "Watch your hands," he said calmly. "Move together. If one of you falls, the rest slow down." They practiced moving supplies through narrow paths. They practiced lifting without hurting their backs. They practiced simple defense, not to attack but to protect exits and safe rooms. Mark corrected gently. When someone failed, he showed them again. He had once been part of a large unit, back when orders still came from somewhere. That time was gone. Now waiting meant losing. Across the city, Anna Brooks stood inside a subway station turned shelter. The walls were covered with signs written in marker. Water. Food. Medicine. Quiet zone. Children's area. The air smelled of dust and soup. Anna walked with a notebook tucked under her arm. She stopped at each table asking the same questions. "How many today? What do you need? Who hasn't eaten yet?" She listened more than she spoke. When people argued, she did not take sides. She found space. When food ran low, she divided it evenly and explained why. No one liked it, but most understood. The shelter grew every day. People arrived tired, injured, and afraid. Some came alone. Some came carrying others. Anna learned faces quickly. She learned who needed extra time, who needed quiet, and who needed work to stay calm. The war outside changed shape. At first, humans tried to hold ground. Streets, buildings, lines on maps. That thinking faded as quickly as the maps themselves. Now the focus was different. Protect the people. Move them before strikes. Hide what cannot fight. Save what can be saved. Mark's volunteers no longer asked where the enemy was. They asked where the children were. Where the sick were. Where the power still worked. Where the next shelter would be. They moved at night. They changed routes often. They left signs only humans understood. A strip of cloth tied a certain way. A chalk mark on broken stone. A light flashed twice, then once. Loss followed them everywhere. One evening, a young man failed to clear a doorway in time. The blast did not kill him, but it took his leg. Mark stayed with him until help arrived. He did not speak much. There were no words that could make it better. That night, Mark added a new rule. "No one moves alone," he said the next morning. Ever. No one argued. In the shelter, Anna lost people too. Some left to look for family and never returned. Some were taken by illness. Some were lost during evacuation when alien fire fell too close. Each time, Anna wrote the name down. She placed the notebook back under her arm and kept walking. He stopped, everything would stop. Above Earth, the alien commanders watched from ships that had never been touched by dust or fire. Their rooms were quiet. Their screens were clean. Data flowed without pause. They saw cities break apart. Infrastructure fail. Resource lines collapse. They also saw something that did not fit. Human movement increased after loss, not before. Areas hit hardest showed stronger cooperation. Attacks meant to isolate groups instead pushed them together. One commander adjusted the model. Another adjusted it again. Still, the numbers did not match. On the ground, Mark met Anna for the first time during a supply transfer. They did not shake hands. There was no time. 3 shelters need water, Anna said. 1 needs medicine. I can get 2 covered, Mark replied. The 3rd is too open. We move them tonight, Anna said. Mark nodded. I'll send teams. They did not ask who was in charge. The question did not matter. That night the evacuation worked. Not perfectly. Never perfectly. But enough. People moved through back tunnels and broken service paths. Volunteers carried children on their backs. Someone played quiet music on a small speaker to keep panic down. When an alien ship passed overhead, everyone stopped at once, breathing shallow and still. No one was left behind. By morning the shelter was empty. The subway station felt strange without voices, but it was safe. For now. The war was no longer about winning battles. It was about choosing who lived to see tomorrow. Mark trained more people than ever. Not fighters but helpers. Lifters. Guides. Watchers. He taught them how to stay calm under noise. How to listen for changes in the air. How to trust each other when fear pressed hard. Anna's network spread. 1 shelter became 5. 5 became 12. Each one shared information freely. No one kept secrets. Supplies moved where they were needed most. People began to say it out loud. This isn't about land. This is about us. The alien commanders noticed another change. Human attacks were rare, but when they happened they were sharp and focused. Always near shelters. Always near evacuation paths. Never random. Humans did not strike to conquer. They struck to protect. That made no sense to the invaders. Their doctrine was simple. Control territory. Break systems. Force surrender. Humans ignored all 3. Loss continued. It always did. But unity grew faster. Mark watched a group of new volunteers move through a drill without being told. Anna watched strangers share their last food with someone they had never met. Above the planet, alien records added a new note. Humans fight hardest not for power, not for ground, but for each other. And for the first time since the invasion began, the commanders questioned whether death was something they could still deliver on schedule. The final push began without warning, but everyone felt it coming. The alien ships moved closer to the surface than ever before. Their shadows stretched across cities like dark hands. Strikes fell faster, closer together, aimed not just at buildings but at hope itself. The message did not change. Earth must die. But the tone did. It was louder. Repeated. Forced into every channel the aliens could reach. They wanted humans to hear it again and again until resistance felt useless. Daniel Reed stood inside a command room that was not really a command room anymore. It was a school gym with maps taped to the walls and radios laid out on old tables. Volunteers moved in and out quietly. Outside, the ground shook with distant impacts. A younger man pointed at the map. If we hold here, we can slow them. Daniel looked at the lines. He saw the plan. He also saw the cost. How many people are still inside that zone? Daniel asked. Thousands, someone answered. Maybe more. The room went quiet. Holding the line would look like victory. Retreat would look like failure. Daniel knew how it would be remembered. He also knew what mattered more. We don't hold, he said. Someone protested. Another shook their head. Daniel raised his hand. We delay. We block. We move people out. That's the win. Across the city, Emma Clark sat in front of a radio panel with open channels running at once. Her voice moved calmly from one frequency to another. Shelter 4, move now. Use the west route. Medical team, slow down. You're ahead of schedule. It's okay. Breathe. You're not alone. She did not shout. She did not rush. Her calm spread through the static. People trusted the voice they kept hearing when everything else broke. The aliens hit harder. Bridges fell. Roads split open. A wave of attacks rolled forward, meant to trap people in place and force panic. But humans did not rush into battle. They did not chase the enemy. They stepped back. Teams blocked streets behind evacuations. Old buses were pushed sideways to form walls. Fires were lit to hide movement. Signals flashed once, twice, then went dark. Daniel moved with an evacuation group through a narrow street just as an alien strike hit the far end. Dust filled the air. Someone fell. Hands reached down and pulled them back up. Keep moving, Daniel said. Slow is smooth. Smooth is fast. They reached the edge of the zone moments before it disappeared in fire. From above, the alien commanders watched the operation fail. Humans were not breaking. They were slipping away. Every time pressure increased, targets vanished. The invaders adjusted timing. Humans adjusted routes. They increased force. Humans increased distance. Emma's voice stayed steady even when the ground shook beneath her feet. "You're doing fine," she told the shelter leader whose hands were shaking. "Stay where you are. We'll come to you." When one channel went silent, she did not freeze. She shifted. She adapted. Another voice took its place. Fear tried to rise. It did not find space. Daniel faced his hardest choice at dawn. A large district still had power. Hospitals were running. Shelters were active. But the aliens were closing in fast. If they stayed, they could fight. If they left, the district would fall. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. "We pull out," he said. Someone slammed a fist into the table. "That's a city?" Daniel nodded. "And it's full of people. We save them." The evacuation took hours. Humans delayed the enemy at every turn. Not with strength but with timing. Small teams blocked paths then disappeared. Noise came from one direction while people moved in another. The aliens struck empty buildings again and again. By the time they realized the city was gone, there was nothing left to crush. Above Earth, the alien models began to break down. Morale should have collapsed by now. Instead, human coordination increased. Retreat did not weaken them. It made them faster. The final attack stalled. Emma leaned back in her chair for the first time in days. Her throat hurt. Her hands trembled. But the channels were quiet in a good way. The kind of quiet that meant people were safe. Daniel stood on a hill outside the city and watched smoke rise where homes once stood. Grief pressed into him. He did not deny it. But he also saw lines of people moving toward safety. He saw lights turning on in distant shelters. He saw hands reaching for each other. The aliens did not understand retreat without defeat. Humans did. The final push failed not because humans were stronger, but because they refused to play the game the enemy expected. They did not fight for pride. They fought for lives. As alien ships pulled back to reassess, something changed in their records. Human morale was not broken. It was reinforced. And for the first time, the invaders faced a truth they had not planned for. You cannot crush a species that knows when to step back, and chooses to stand together anyway. The alien fleets did not leave in fire or defeat. They left in silence. One by one, the dark shapes in the sky pulled back, rising higher until they were only dots, then nothing at all. No message followed. No final threat. The noise that had filled the world for weeks simply faded. For a long time, no one celebrated. People stood outside and looked up, unsure if the quiet was real. Some waited for the sky to break again. Others listened for the low hum that had become part of daily life. When nothing came, many sat down where they were and cried. Not from joy but from release. Earth was wounded. Cities were scarred. Whole areas were empty where life once crowded every street. Smoke still rose from places no one could reach yet. The world was alive but changed. Daniel Reed walked through a neighborhood that no longer had names on its streets. Signs were gone. Walls were broken. He stepped carefully not because he feared attack but because he respected the space. People were already working. Clearing paths. Carrying pieces of homes aside. No one waited for orders. Emma Clark stood near a small table set up in the open air. On it were papers, radios, and handwritten maps. People came to her with questions. Where can we help? Who needs food? Which shelter is moving today? Emma answered each one calmly. Her voice was quieter now, but it still carried. She no longer spoke into open channels all day. The need had changed. Jack Miller returned from a long walk across the city's edge. He reported which roads could be used and which could not. He did not speak of the places that were gone. Others already knew. Lucy Grant sat beside a generator she had repaired for the third time. It rattled and shook, but it worked. Children watched the light turn on and off as if it were magic. Lucy smiled and told them it was only wires and care. Mark Lewis trained people again, but this time it was different. He showed them how to lift debris safely, how to spot weak walls, how to work in teams without rushing. His lessons were slower now. No one complained. Anna Brooks organized food lines in daylight. The lines were longer than before, but calmer. People talked. They shared. When supplies were short, no one shouted. The world did not rush to rebuild the old way. People remembered what had failed. Small groups made decisions together. Shelters became neighborhoods. Temporary systems became plants. Mistakes were spoken out loud so they would not be repeated. At night, the sky stayed quiet. Above the planet, far beyond human sight, the alien fleets gathered and counted losses. Their ships were damaged. Their resources stretched thin. Their models lay broken. They had come to erase a world. Instead, they had been forced to withdraw to survive. In their records, Earth was no longer marked as weak or unimportant. It was given a new note, added carefully after long debate. Dangerous species. Not because of weapons. Not because of numbers. Because humans chose each other over fear. Because they adapted without command. Because they refused to surrender even when retreating. Because loss did not break them, it connected them. Back on Earth, Daniel watched people raise new walls from old stone. Emma watched children play in spaces once used as shelters. Jack walked without a map for the first time in weeks. Lucy turned off a radio and let the silence rest. Mark set down his whistle and used his hands instead. Anna closed her notebook and left it on the table. The sky remained clear. Humanity did not cheer loudly. It did not declare victory. It simply continued. Slower. Wiser. Together. And somewhere in the vast dark beyond, the galaxy learned a quiet lesson. A world that chooses to stand together cannot be erased,